What's up, Code Crew? Hope you guys are having a great week so far. I wanted to make this video to walk you through how you can create your own guides for ethical hacking, penetration testing, adversary emulation, all that really cool stuff that we look to do as ethical hackers so that we can sharpen our cybersecurity skills. Now, you may have realized upon your various experience that it is really hard to find walkthroughs and guides and step-by-steps on how an adversary creates an attack, how they follow through. And while there is the MITRE attack framework, which is what we're going to cover today, you'll find that the amount of information for these tactics and these techniques is pretty overwhelming. And if you look at the getting started section on how to use this framework, that you are not intended to digest 100% of the framework. Instead, you're supposed to focus on areas that are going to be beneficial for you in your organization, tailored to your own information that's needed to be protected. So as a beginner, potentially you watching may be like, well, I don't have an organization. I'm just looking to learn this stuff because I think it's cool. You want to get a job in it, whatever, right? So you don't even know where you want to land as far as your job goes. So at that point, I suggest you get some dice and you roll them, right? And then depending on the number that it lands on, you can go pick a technique from one of the various tactics. Now, there's another way you can do it that's way more convenient and involves AI, and you can probably already see the potential there. But since AI already has the MITRE attack framework in its training set, you can ask it to create its own scenarios in which an attack happens using those techniques. I have here a prompt that you can see that basically says, why don't you go ahead and create a realistic scenario with as much detail using each of the tactics and picking a random technique within that tactic for a cyber attack. And to my surprise, it comes up with some pretty crazy stuff. Like, it'll basically walk you through each phase of the attack. Now, something that I want to point out is that adversaries do not use every tactic, or they don't have to use every tactic on the MITRE attack framework. The tactics are going to just be like tools that are available to adversaries. Most of them, if not all of them, are going to probably use the first tactic, which is reconnaissance. Not all of them may do exfiltration, right? Not all of them may do impact. Some of them may just be looking to get command and control. Some of them may just be looking for privilege escalation. And so the reason I mention this is because while your scenarios that you make with AI may show you a technique for every single tactic that's on the matrix, that doesn't necessarily mean that's always how it goes down. And what makes it even cooler is that you can actually say, pick a few different tactics and then randomly select techniques from those tactics to generate a scenario. And once you have something that you think is exciting, you may even, like when I was reading the types of scenarios that it was generating for the past few days, I've been spending hours, honestly, just reading them, they're pretty sophisticated, right? They're pretty sophisticated. And because they're so sophisticated and the model is just trying to answer your question to the fullest it has with its token output, it skips out on some details. It'll give you like a glimpse of the technical input, like maybe the command that you should run. But as far as the exact details step by step for some phase of the attack, it's not thorough. But what you can do is you can say, hey, for this phase, for the recon phase, walk me through step by step on how this attack happened. Now, I have been doing these prompts on Grok, and I have found it to be not so conservative. For example, when I went to ChatGPT and asked it to create these scenarios with these thorough walkthroughs, the O1 model told me that it was unable to handle that request. I told it it's for educational purposes, and that got around it, but it was very vague. You know, it wasn't like really step by step. Now, if you got some miles under your belt and you're looking at me like, well, I would just know what to do, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool, right? And And myself and the viewers, I'm sure, would like to be at a point where we can read a very vague guide and be able to already think of the step-by-step process in between. But if you're not at that point, right, if you need a little bit more of a walkthrough, you can simply ask for the model to explain thoroughly what this phase involves, and it'll tell you the commands, and it'll tell you the scripts that might have been used by the adversary. And it's not only super entertaining, it's like watching like a super like nerded out version of Mr. Robot. But you'll get a lot of insight, and it's really crazy. It's really cool stuff that you're gonna see. Now, I have here in front of me a lock picking set, and you're probably like, why is this guy sitting in front of a lock picking set? The reason I have this here is because when I was watching some of the responses that were coming from Grok from this prompt, I was a bit hesitant in whether or not I should show you how to do this, because let me tell you a story. Back when I was a senior in high school, I had found on YouTube a video, maybe it just popped up randomly, I forget, but I saw a video on how to open up combination locks using a soda can. And basically what you would do is you would get a can, just like regular beverage can, and you would cut out a rectangle from it, and then you would fold it and cut it in a certain way to where you had like this little arrow with some handles on it. I think it was called a shim. Then you would put the shim into the edge of the lock, and you would just pop it open. And that was crazy to me. I was like, yo, how is it that you just come on YouTube and you just see how to pop locks? That's crazy. And, being, 17, 18-year-old kid, I was like, okay, I'm going to show all my friends over in PE class the next day. So I did. I took a shim, I took a combination lock that I had spare, and I popped it open in front of them. And my friends, of course, were like, oh, it's like super cool, right? And that was the end of it. But there was one guy who was like, hey, man, can you show me how you did that? And stupid me, I showed him how to cut it open. I showed him how to fold it over and put it into the lock and shim it open. He was like, oh, that's so cool, man. Thank you. Well, the next week, he comes back bragging to us about how he has been stealing stuff out of people's lockers at various gyms in his neighborhood. And that was crazy to me. I was like, dude, you're completely abusing the knowledge and doing a lot of harm. I didn't tell him this, right? Like, I'm only 17, but that's what was going on in my mind. And I felt kind of guilty because it's like I showed him how to do that, right? But with the information that you're going to find from creating these guides on the MITRE attack frameworks, while it is dangerous knowledge, I want you to remember that it is better, as Bruce Lee said, to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And be sure to use the knowledge responsibly. Be sure to create your own home labs if you wish to experiment with the techniques that are going to be provided. And if you even find yourself just being challenged to create the home lab environment, hey, that's a really good learning lesson too, right? That's a really good experience as well. So with that, I hope you have fun with the prompt. Be sure to use the information responsibly. Make sure to smash like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.